Should you be a first-time dad if you're past the age of 40? Well, let me ask you this. Why wouldn't you? If you want to have a child and you're 42, 43, 47, whatever, why wouldn't you have a kid? Well, I'm 48, and tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning, my wife and I are going to have our very first child. We're stoked. We couldn't be happier. But people ask me all the time, like, hey, is this a good idea? Are you sure about this? You know, you're just 2 years away from 50. Should you be having a kid at this point in your life? Yeah, a lot of people do have their second or third or fourth child in their 30s or 40s, but it's still pretty uncommon for a first-time parent to be 40 plus, 45 plus. Is that a bad thing, though? Is there anything wrong with this? Well, when people come to me, they always voice their concerns in one of several very familiar and very recognizable categories. They always ask, aren't you worried about not being able to keep up with your kid or being too old to play with your child when they grow up? Or they'll ask something like, well, as an older dad, aren't you worried about like chances of birth defects or your baby not being healthy or your kid not coming out quite right because you're older? Then they'll ask something like, well, you're not going to have very much time with your kid if it's going to be born, and you'll be 60 by the time it graduates from high school. Hey, you're so set in your ways, you're not 20 and can pack for a road trip in 5 minutes or grab a pillow and sleep outside under the stars on a whim. Are you sure you want to become a parent? Are you sure you want to change and adapt? And then finally, the last concern is people come up to me and say, hey, having a baby is a lot of work. Are you sure you're up for it? Aren't you going to be tired? What about the sleep loss? It's really difficult on a parent to have a child for the first time. Oh, you may think you can handle it, but you don't know what you're in for. It's really tough. Let's talk about all these concerns. Then let's talk about the good things about being an older parent. And here's a spoiler. I think not only if you're over 40 or over 45 or even in your 50s, can you be a successful first-time parent, but I honestly believe you may be a better parent than someone in their 20s or 30s. So let's deal with that very first concern of, oh, aren't you worried about not being able to keep up with your kid or getting tired if they're playing and they're a teenager and you can't throw a ball and play catch with them? Well, you know what? That's a valid concern, but that applies to a parent of any age. No one knows for sure what's going to happen that far down the road or what condition they're going to be on. The best thing we can do is to get in shape now. And that's not an easy thing to do. You don't just wake up and say, oh, I'm going to start running and feel better and just, it happens like that. It does take some effort, but at 40 and 50, you've got a lot more willpower and you've got the ability to do things like make life changes, especially when a kid is on the way. It's hard when you're younger to go to the gym more often or make a diet change. So what I tell people is I say, hey, yeah, you know, I know it's going to be tough, but I'm doing the best I can now. I'm running, I'm going to the gym, I'm trying to eat healthier, and I do plan to be there a long time for the kid. And it's never guaranteed at any age how you'll be in 10 to 15 years down the road. Then the other concern, well, you're in your 40s or 50s, you're not going to be there very long for your kid, you know, because they're not going to have a lot of time with you. All right, well, you know what? Let me tell you this. Lifespans are a lot longer now than they were 50 or 100 years ago. First person to live to be 150 years old has already been born. So it's very likely that if you just take care of yourself, get good medical care, get screening, you can last a pretty darn long time and be there for your child for decades upon decades. Again, like running, it's not going to be easy. You won't just say, oh, I'm going to put down that cigarette or put down that beer bottle and it's going to happen. It'll take some work, but you can make changes that will increase the chances that you'll be there for your kid until your 90s or maybe even 100, especially with the way modern medicine is going. And then let me ask you this. How does a 20 or a 30-year-old parent know that they will be there for sure in 40 or 50 years for their kid? How can they guarantee that, huh? There's so many unforeseen factors. How do they know they're still going to be around? That's not a fair comparison when they say, yes, a 20 to 30-year-old parent, first-time parent, has a better chance of being there for their child down the road than a 40 or 50-year-old parent. If the 20 to 30-year-old is dumb, doesn't watch out for themselves, the 40 to 50-year-old does, who do you think is going to be there in several decades? This is common sense. Just use common sense. Now, there's the concern of you're older, what about your sperm? Or if you're a mom, what about your egg not being in as good of shape and the increased chance of birth defects? That's true. They do say after 45 that male sperm tends to degrade and gives significant rise to several well-known types of birth defects like Down syndrome, autism, physical deformities, things like that. If you really want to make sure things are going to be okay, there's a lot of genetic screening that can be done. There's a lot of in utero tests that can be performed. Talk to your doctor about them to screen out the possibility of these occurring. If you really want to make sure that your kid is healthy, go through in vitro fertilization, IVF. As part of that process, they can take DNA samples from a blastocyst where your child is only 6 cells old, 6 cells large, and they can extract DNA from one of those cells, take a look at it, analyze the chromosomes, see how it's made up, and see if there's anything they should be worried about at that point. So they're taking a look at this kid before it's even inside of the mom, before it's even in uterus. That's amazing. That's mind-blowing technology. That's tremendous. But it does nearly guarantee, I mean, when I say nearly guarantee, it'll take the odds of something like autism being 1 in 200 down to 1 in 10,000, or a genetic-related disorder going from 1 in 500 to a 1 in 50,000 type of percentage possibility of happening. That's how good science is these days. So if you want to go the extra effort, go through IVF. Now, IVF is expensive, but again, the benefit of being an older parent is you've had a lot longer to practice your career, to earn money, and there's a greater chance that you'll be able to afford the bills of IVF compared to someone who's just starting off, say, 21 or 22. Another plus for the 40 to 50-year-old crowd, right there. Now what about the people that say, hey, you're so set in your ways, are you sure you can make a change? You're so comfortable in your patterns, having a kid will disrupt all that. Do you really want to do it? You know what? Yes, you can. If you want something enough, if you really have that drive to have a child, I know I've got it. There's nothing you will not do in order to have that kid. There's no change you won't make. There's no lifestyle alteration that you won't be happy to take on to make sure that little one hits the ground. So if you love going to bed every night at 7 p.m. and watching Netflix for an hour or two and falling asleep at 9 or 10, yeah, that's going to change. But when you've got that drive to be a dad and you can't wait for that little kiddo to arrive, making lifestyle changes, that's nothing. That's a drop in the bucket of what you'd be willing to do. It's going to be easy. It'll be simple. You'll be looking forward to making those changes. And then finally, the people that say stuff like, oh, being a parent is hard, you're going to be so tired all the time, you're used to your rest, you need your 8 hours a night, you won't be able to handle the interruptions, it's going to wake up every 2 to 3 hours, life is going to be so difficult, you won't know where you are. Yes, I get it. Okay. But again, that falls into what we've kind of already been talking about of take steps now to increase your health so you can handle disruptions of sleep, eat healthier, get more exercise. That will also help you deal with the interruptions in your sleeping cycles. Then finally, like I was just saying about lifestyle patterns and changes, you'll be more willing and more able to take on the interruptions in sleep than you would if you're in your 20s or 30s. You'll be able to handle and cope with it more. The odds are, at this point in our lives, that's not the most challenging thing we've ever come across. For younger parents, often it is. Now, what are the benefits? What are the pluses? There's got to be something good about being a older parent, and this is where I think we really shine. This is where I think we really come through. Honestly, I don't know why everyone doesn't wait until they're 30 or 40, at the very least, before having a kid, a planned child, a planned pregnancy. I don't know why anyone would want to plan to have a kid in their 20s or, oh, I'm going to be done with kids by my 30s. That's ridiculous. Did you ever make a mistake in your 20s? Did you happen to make mistakes more frequently, and those mistakes were a lot more severe than you do now? I think I know the answer to that one. Then, when you did make a mistake in your 20s, did you not know how to handle it, whereas if you made that same mistake now, you would know how to handle it? Hey, that's because you've got a lot more wisdom. You've been out there a lot longer. You have a lot more knowledge, and you're going to take that knowledge and you're going to help your child grow, and you're going to be more mature. You're going to be more stable. You're going to be a lot more responsible, and you're going to be exactly what the kid needs, which is a much more even-keeled, steady, compassionate, calm parent. And now let's take a look at just the economic side of things. As someone who's in their peak earning years, the 40s and 50s, you've amassed more money than someone starting off in their 20s or 30s. So you may have the ability to put your career on hold for a while. You've got that decade or two of street cred and experience out there where if you want to step aside from your work, you can pick it up later on. Someone who's just starting off can't do that. They won't be able to be a stay-at-home parent. They won't have as much money. They may not be able to hire daycare to help take care of their child. You'll have a lot more financial resources available to give you a lot more flexibility and be able to choose just how much you want to be with your kid. So when someone comes up to you and says, are you sure you want to be a parent because you're X number of years old? I'd turn around and say, how on earth could you have a kid if you were any younger? How do those 20-year-olds pull it off when they don't have as much street experience or worldly knowledge, or they're not as set in themselves and comfortable in their skin as you are when you are more mature and more advanced? Huh? Tell me that. I really do think that every parent should be on the upper side of the 30s at the very least. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to this channel if you want to hear more tips and experiences on being an older first-time dad. I'll see you in the next video.